Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Thank you all for coming. This is I believe, our fourth distance learning ideas from the field webinar. And today we're going to be talking about unlocking the door. This is a theme from Ozark Literacy Council. It's a theme that they used in their kind of regular face-to-face tutoring instruction or tutor and student interactions. And it's really one that has carried over to their distance learning efforts. So for those of you who have not attended before, we are recording this. We will send out a follow-up email on Monday. It'll have a link to the recording. It'll have a link to the various websites that get mentioned today. We also try to include a text of the chat and things like that. For those of you who are attending, we'll also include a link to a certificate. Let's see. We're going to ask that you, there are two kind of features for communication. We have over 600 people right now on the webinar, so it's kind of impossible for us to unmute people and let you ask your questions. So we're going to ask that you use the Q&A function to ask questions about content, resources that get mentioned, that sort of thing. We'll ask that you use the chat to post links or let us know about any technical issues. And that just makes it easier for us at the end of the webinar when we're going through all of your questions and asking them to the presenters to keep track of and make sure all of the questions have been answered. As I said, we're doing these webinars every week, same time, Friday, 2 to 3 Eastern. We try to get that email out, letting you know what the next one is going to be on the Tuesday or Wednesday of that week, so you can kind of keep an eye out for it. Coming up, we have here are the list of folks that we have scheduled coming up. We have some folks, these are all from Texas. Northside Independent School District is from San Antonio, Community Action of Central Texas, and then Literacy Lubbock. And we've chosen them. I know in the past we've had a lot of classroom examples and kind of urban examples. The Ozark Literacy is going to be the first one that's in more of a rural setting, although they are located in Fayetteville, Arkansas, which is a city with a university that they get to take advantage of. And so just to kind of tell you, we are trying to get rural folks, we're trying to get people that do one-on-one instruction as well as group instruction, and we're trying to get people that are using different forms of technology. So as we move on, you'll kind of see that expand. And just again, thank you for everyone who has responded and volunteered to be a part of these webinars. You've been very generous with your time and your knowledge, and we really appreciate it. We are also posting the recordings of these webinars on ProLiteracy Education Network. We've also established a section on distance learning resources. If you have an Education Network account, you log in, and on the welcome page, there's a big banner across the top, and you can click on that and it'll take you directly to those distance learning resources. And if anybody has any questions about the webinar or about ProLiteracy Education Network, you can email me and you see my email address. Okay, so I am going to turn things over to today's presenters. We have Patty Sullivan, who's the Executive Director of Ozark Literacy, and she's going to kind of talk about just their community so you get a feel for kind of the environment that they're working in. Mina Phebus, who's the Program Director, she's going to talk about how they've structured their distance learning programs and the way that they support their tutors and teachers. And then it's Savannah Hadley, who's an AmeriCorps service member and an instructor, is going to talk about what that instruction actually looks like. So I am going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to turn things over to Patty, Mina, and Savannah. And let me unmute them. And there we go.
There we go.
Oh, wait a second.
Hi, I'm Patty Sullivan. I'm the Executive Director of the Ozark Literacy Council. I'm so pleased to be here with you all today. And we're going to, as Todd described, we're going to talk about several elements, some of the things we've done to move to distance learning. Mina will show you our next slide. This is, obviously what many of us were expecting earlier this year, and this is our reality. We've been in distance learning since mid-March, and we certainly miss seeing our students, but we're making it work best we can as everyone is everywhere. This is this is last year's annual report. We've had remarkable growth, and a lot of that is because we're located, as you can see on the map there, in Northwest Arkansas. Northwest Arkansas is the home to Walmart, Tyson, and J.B. Hunt, three large corporations, as well as the University of Arkansas, which is located just a couple of miles from our building, the Ozark Literacy Council in Fayetteville. So we've grown with our counties and communities. 2007, we had 80 students. This year, or last year, 350 to 400 every year now. And we've been in business for 55 years. We started as a small literacy council, and we've grown and continue to grow. And this will also tell you a little bit about our students. About half of our students are Spanish speakers, and the other half come from countries around the world. We only teach adults. All of our services are free. And we teach, Mina will talk a little bit more about our schedule, but we typically teach in several locations and at different times of the day. We're funded primarily through state adult education grants and state literacy grants. We also get corporate and community support, and we have many friends and donors who also support our Literacy Council. You're going to hear from both that there are only 2 full-time employees. Mina Phebus and I are the only 2 full-time employees, and the rest of our workforce comes from a combination of tutors, teachers, AmeriCorps members, and occasional paid teachers depending on the project. One of our biggest goals is we serve as a welcome center for New Arkansans. 95% of our students are English language learners and speak languages other than English, and we very much see that as an important part of our community, is to welcome people. Most of our growth has been without us doing a lot of recruiting. Most of our growth has come word of mouth or just through the natural growth of our region, and that's why we talk a lot about unlocking the door. It's really important that we have an open and welcoming environment, and that's been one of the things we're really trying to portray now that we're distant for some period of time. And today, I'm happy to be here with you today, and I'll turn it over to Mina Phebus, our longtime program director.
Thank you, Patty. Hello, everyone. My name is Mina Phebus, Program Director. Before I begin, let me go over some of our program data so that you can have a clear picture about us. For our 2019 program year, we had 374 students, 80 volunteer tutors, 8 volunteer teachers, 8 AmeriCorps teachers, 2 paid teachers. We view teachers and tutors differently. Teachers conduct class in a group, and tutors meet student one-on-one. Also, we have 5 locations where our classes are offered. Main location is in Fayetteville. We also offer classes at the library and Tyson plants. So the first thing I want to make very clear is that we didn't have any distance learning program prior to March at all. So with that said, I will show you the timeline process detailing how we arrived at our current distance learning program. Back in January, we came back from Christmas holiday. We began to talk about COVID-19 among staff and students to make everyone aware of the situation. In late January and early February, we began to ask students during class to verify their email addresses so that we can contact them electronically if needed. We even made email and online meeting tools as a part of the curriculum, just in case we had to communicate electronically more frequently in the near future. We found that many of our international students didn't have email accounts, or they didn't use them often. So we practiced during class, and teachers send out email periodically to make sure that they are checking and responding to emails. This helped make the transition to online format a smoother process in general. In mid-March, shortly after break, we piloted our first Zoom class. We thought that students wouldn't be interested in, but it turned out to be several students liked the idea. We started with 2 students initially, but within 2 weeks, the class averaged 12 students each time. As interest started to grow in this class and the idea of my format among the students, we began to have confidence to change all the programming to that delivery matter. So Savannah will talk more about that later. By the end of March, we had our all online class advertised on our website and social media. With all that said, let me go into some detail about our program and planning process to make this a transition. First, all our program topics are stored on Google Drive. Next, we survey our students to identify students' interest. After that, a syllabus can be created based on students' interest and need based on the survey. And teachers are able to follow the syllabus using resources in a shared drive. Since we already offer our curriculum lesson in a shared drive among teachers and staff, the transition to working online was smooth in general. As I mentioned before, we haven't changed our curriculum and program structure at all just for COVID-19. Everything you're about to see from this slide was available before the COVID-19 situation. This information will just give you an idea about how our program functioned, which made it easier to transition to an online format. Only thing we do differently now is that we provide this program via Zoom instead of an in-person traditional class setting. Now let's look at the program calendar. We have 4 terms basically, corresponding with the season. Each term lasts 10 to 12 weeks. During our orientation, our new volunteer tutors and teachers, they all receive this program calendar so that they can plan ahead. This allows them to plan and develop lesson plan accordingly. Also, during the last week of or so each term, we have a class survey to hear likes and dislikes of the students so that teacher can get insight about the planning for the next term curriculum. Here is a sample of our class schedule. We have several satellite locations, but this is just example of our main location in Fayetteville. As you can see, we provide a classes Monday through Friday with morning and evening classes available. Currently, some of the classes level have been combined because of teachers' availability. But normally, pre-COVID-19, this is what it looks like. This is a sample of our prior term to give you a better idea of what our normal class schedule looks like. We implement the Arkansas Other ESL curriculum, but as you can see, there are topics provided with no lesson plan or student worksheet that teachers can directly use from. So also the guidelines were the last published in 2006. So some of the contents is now irrelevant. So for that reason, it is necessary to come up with our own way to develop the curriculum. This is how we organize our curriculum on Google Drive. As you can see, we have 6 levels. I will take the level 3 as an example. And here's what it looks like when you click on level 3. Each level has teachers folder and curriculum. The teacher's class, each teacher's class in that level has their own folder. I will show you Savannah classes as an example, last year's Savannah's class. There are 4 separate folders for each term. If I pick spring term 2 as an example, there are 13 weeks with lesson folders and syllabus for that term. Each term has a weekly theme and topic. If I click syllabus on the bottom, you will see syllabus including weekly planned activity. Similar to most classes, we provide a syllabus on the first day of class. We create most survey and other forms in Excel so that we can easily modify them later. Here's what the final survey looks like. Syllabus is based on students' survey, which is completed at the end of term. Each day's lesson is found in the weekly lesson plan. Let me show you an example of this day's lesson. Now, let's look at the curriculum under each level. So like I said, each level you click it, you will see teacher folder and curriculum. So if you click the curriculum under each level, these topics originally come from the state guideline. But we have added additional topics that we think are important. We also remove the topics if it's not, if it's outdated, irrelevant, or added it to adapt to our students' need. Each topic has a corresponding lesson link in blue embedded. Some topics have more than one lesson available. If you hover over the lesson, the link will appear like this. If you click that, this lesson is about how to write a check. So it is usually 6-page long lesson from the ESL library and other ESL website. Some of them are paid website and some of them are free, but we usually use paid website because of the quality. Also, we build our own lesson depending on topics. Here are our most frequent used website to develop lesson plans from. We have always met with the teachers weekly prior to COVID-19. I didn't want the process to change. So this is an opportunity for me to share information and resources about our program, and teachers to share the information about their students. So as I've mentioned before, communication is very valuable with the students, but communication among our teachers is just as valuable. Even though my office doors are always open, I like to maintain the structure of the weekly meeting. Now I will turn it over to Savannah for the next slide.
Hi everyone, my name is Savannah Hadley, like Mina said, and I'm an AmeriCorps member at Ozark Literacy Council. This is my second service term, and I teach adult English language learners. So I'm going to describe to you briefly what our online classes have looked like for me. And if you have more specific questions, you can put them in the Q&A for after our presentation. So as Mina said, when we started our online classes, we started doing the sign-in sheet, but we couldn't get them in person. So we started taking a screenshot of the Zoom class. So we would begin the class with an introduction and talking. And once everyone had arrived, I would take a screenshot of the screen and fill in their names to our sign-in sheet later and use the screen for our records of who had been there. And then I've also been using other functions on Zoom for my classes, such as screen share, which allows me to pull up resources like ESL library that Mina mentioned and share my screen with all of my students. Zoom also has a whiteboard function that has allowed us to use chat in a more interactive way with the students. And there's a function called breakout groups, where I can put, say we have 15 students, I can put them into smaller conversational groups that allows all of the students to have more of a chance to talk. So those have been some of the things I've used on Zoom. And we've also been, so this slide, the student Zoom welcome party, we actually had a wonderful situation where the wife of one of our long-term students was able to come to the United States, and we wanted to celebrate them, but we were unfortunately at a distance. So one of our teachers came up with the idea for a Zoom tea party with bring your own tea. And so everyone was able to come and celebrate. And it really, I think, lifted the students' spirits to have a sort of informal place to chat and keep them engaged and keep them feeling in the community. We've also been continuing to see new students, even though we are all online and at a distance right now. And so that intake process for us is also online. So we use a Google form and we fill out the intake form with them through Zoom instead of in person right now. And as far as class attendance, our numbers have been high, especially for my level. I teach intermediate and advanced. I've noticed that it's not only stabilized, but increased. And I think that's because it's increased accessibility, not only to our regular students, but to students who have moved to other states or even other countries. They've been returning to our class, which has been really fun. And I think the students enjoy seeing their old classmates, and they've been able to engage in the class with us again too. And we've been posting about our classes on social media. And like Mina said, we had our contact information with our active students, but I've noticed that the students themselves are doing a lot of recruiting, talking to former students that they have connections with. So our class size has maintained its size. And that's all that I have for you right now. So thank you all for listening. This is our contact information for Patty and Mina and our website. And I'll turn it over to Todd now for the Q&A.
Actually, Savannah, we've had a lot of requests to go back to that slide with the resource addresses. Sure. So can we just leave that up for a minute so people can copy those down or get them? And we will include those in the materials that we send out and link to in your follow-up email. But if you want to check them out now, we'll leave that slide up for a few minutes. So we've had a few questions. So one of them is just in terms of the Zoom that you're using, are you guys using just the free Zoom accounts, or do you have an account through Ozark Literacy that you're using, a paid account?
Todd, I'll take that question if I have volume right now. This is Patty.
Yep.
We have both. Right now we're using, if those of y'all who use professional Zoom accounts know that the management can be a little difficult. So because of the sudden change for us, we're using mostly free Zoom. Some people have access to professional Zoom, and they find that the short period of time with the break makes sense for, for a 2-hour class. Savannah, can you add something to that about how you're managing that?
Yes, so the break, for the free version, it does time out after 40 minutes if you have more than 2 students on the Zoom call. But we have been using that as a perfect time for a break because 2 straight hours on Zoom is difficult to remain engaged the whole time. So we have just been allowing them to take a break and then they just get back onto the link again.
Okay. Couple of more questions kind of around Zoom. Do you limit your class size on Zoom?
Savannah?
So no, we haven't had to limit it so far. And like I said, the breakout groups have been really helpful because at first when we were starting to get to 15 students, I was noticing it was difficult for all of them to have a chance to talk. Sometimes they would accidentally talk over each other because on Zoom there can be a delay. But the breakout groups allowed me to give them a discussion question or something, then put them into smaller groups where they can actually have more time to talk. So I haven't had a need to limit class size yet.
Okay. And then the other question around that, oh, go ahead, Robin.
Oh, that's okay. I just noticed that people are wondering about your enrollment process. So are you enrolling new students during this time? And if so, how are you doing that? And they'd also like to know if you have open enrollment. So are you letting students join classes that are already in session?
Mina?
Yeah, we have open enrollment and we're taking new students. We don't have any class size limit. We just basically run right now our program just like before COVID-19. So is that?
Yes, we have obviously our students can't fill out the intake packet. This is Patty again. And so we have some returning students and we're working with our adult education our state literacy council and our state adult education partners to make sure that we're getting the information as we can to allow them to enroll. And we open enrollment, we run mostly managed enrollment classes. Typically this quarter, we've been managing that a little bit less. We're just trying to kind of maintain at this point. And if a new student wants to come in because they're in proximity to an existing student or they have a conversation with them, we're figuring out how to enroll them until we can get them back in later, perhaps at the end of the summer for some kind of testing.
Thank you. Couple of more questions, and Mina or Savannah, one of you mentioned the breakout rooms. I was just going to say our webinar last week was from a representative from Zoom who showed us how to use the breakout rooms, and there's a recording of that webinar on proliteracy.org/health, and I posted the link to that site in the chat room. So if you want to go back and learn more, if you've never used the breakout rooms, he gives a good example of how to do that. We had a lot of questions around just this idea of students accessing Zoom. How are most of your students doing that? Do they have computers? Are they using phones? And if they had not used Zoom before you started doing the distance learning, how did you show them how to use it? Like, was it difficult? You know, kind of what kind of approach did you take? Can somebody speak to that?
Savannah, you want to kind of mention about how you use it? Yeah.
Yeah, so the majority of my students use their computers, but for those of them that don't have access to a computer, they use their phones. And it's worked well on both of those. When we first started, I sent out an introductory sort of email that gave them the link to Zoom, and I sort of gave step-by-step instructions on how they were going to open Zoom, and when I sent them the link, what it would look like for them to download Zoom. Because I had never used Zoom before, and most of my students, I think all of my students were not familiar with Zoom. So the first couple of classes, we had a few technical difficulties with audio and things, but we were able to figure it out, and the students are really good about helping each other as well in the chat. And so by the second week, I think most people were really able to access it easily.
And I will add, this is Patty again, that that if you'd asked me for the past 3 years what our biggest barrier was, I would, and many of you all on the call would agree, I would say transportation. It was always what I brought up in community groups. But now, like so many of you all, our biggest barrier is internet access. And we are in a kind of a setting where there are a number of public access internets. In the community, the libraries made their parking lots available. Our parking lot is available. We have guest-free, guest wireless, but it is a challenge. We've looked into the idea of getting Chromebooks for some of our students who may not have any technology, but we found that we work closely, because the community is not that large, we work closely with other nonprofits, such as Canopy, our refugee group, and we know that they're supplying their clients who are our students with technology. So we're trying to kind of handle it that way. This is a huge problem across the country, I know.
Okay, let's see. So can you guys also do one-on-one instruction? Can you talk about how that is that program still running, and how are you supporting that program? How do those lessons look different than, say, your classroom lessons? Are they using the kind of same curriculum that the classrooms are using?
I can answer that. So yeah, we provide the same way to the teachers and tutors. We basically run the program same way. Right now, a lot of tutors are not able to use Zoom just because students are not familiar with that, and also tutors are just prefer more just a phone conversation as opposed to Zoom. So they're continue to use that, the phone conversation instead of the Zoom. But when it comes to material and then curriculum-wise, we share the curriculum with the tutors, but their curriculum is basically students' need. So each student, most of our students go to classes and they get their meeting with in addition to that. So when they're meeting with the tutor, they have a specific goal, like they want to pass driver's license, or they want to pass a certain exam. So that becomes their topics instead of following our state curriculum.
Okay, great, great. Let's see, there was one about, there were some questions about when your teachers are sharing documents with students. Do students have to have a printer at home to do worksheets? Like if you have worksheets or the check that you just showed kind of associated with a lesson, how do you handle that if students don't have access to a printer?
We print out the material, some pages. Like I said, we have normally our lesson plan is that 6-page long. So we usually give 1 or 2-page lesson at the end of the session, but we're not printing out all 6 pages. We use a projector, but some students want to have that all 6 pages, and then we can share that our document through the Google Drive and other different way. Yeah.
We've also got people who are just looking for more resources. Do you have any good ESL, particularly low-level resources that you can share that you use, when you're teaching?
Yeah. The one that I share is the most popular website, and also I've been looking for a lot of different lessons, and these are the one that it really fits in our students' need. But there are a lot of books that I think you all know that, like, we use Challengers a lot, Oxford Picture Dictionary a lot, and but there is no, as far as I know, the electronic version in it. So we can't really utilize it right now. So, but typically, I have a couple books that I can share, but I can share with Todd at the end of the meeting.
Great, thank you. And could you also clarify, are all of your students, even if they were previously enrolled in one-to-one tutoring, are they all now enrolled in these Zoom classes? Is that what they were transitioned to? Or do you still have tutors, individual tutors and students meeting, and what platform are they using, if that's the case?
Yeah, so we send out email to all, same message to everybody, 80 volunteers. So but what I see is that I don't see a lot of interaction, and I think students, I don't know why, but prefer to join classes versus the tutoring session, and they just told the tutors that I would like to just join the class instead. But our tutors, maybe students are not realizing they are told to contact students weekly just to checking up they're all okay, and that during the time we're having a conversation about the 15 to 30 minutes weekly. So we consider that as a not tutoring session, but we try to keep the connection with the students like that way. But I think I would say the 20 to 30% of tutor continue meeting students are like the same way, but I think a lot of tutors are just feel more comfortable with just calling students and making sure they're okay. Most of our students are meeting with the tutor, they're now joining online class.
Yes, that's been interesting that some of our students who really preferred one-on-one tutoring feel comfortable with the Zoom classes, and in a way that maybe they didn't feel comfortable. We're finding some positive results as well in that way. And we have also been very clear with all of our tutors and teachers that in the course of their telephone conversations with their students, to make sure to try to kind of listen to see if there are any other barriers that exist because of a change in situation in employment or housing or food insecurity. So we do have the opportunity to navigate those folks to appropriate resources in our community.
We also have a lot of questions about breaks. I think you started to talk about that. So if you're in the middle, you're taking a class and then you take a break, people are wondering if you could go back and clarify how you do that, how you leave, go back, what's involved in that process.
Yeah, to add to that question, they wonder if you have students are signing back on using the same meeting link, or you have to send a new one, those sort of logistics.
Savannah?
Sure. So if it depends on what link you send them. On Zoom, you have a personal meeting link that will be your link always. And if you use that link, and then once it times out, it will alert you. If you're using the free version, it will say your session will end in several minutes, and then it'll count down. So you'll know when it's about to close out, and you can let the students know and say that let's take a 5-10 minute break, and then they can click on the same link using your personal meeting link. If you don't use your personal meeting link, you will need to send them a new link. If you just go and on Zoom, there's an option to host a meeting. That generates a new link each time. So if you do that after the break, you would have to send them a new link, but not on the personal meeting link. It stays the same.
Okay. There are some questions about, so your intake process, specifically about assessing students when they're coming in. So how are you handling that aspect of assessing students and finding the right spot for them?
We are using same intake form that we used to use. So all the intake form has all the information that we need to keep track of our student data.
Mina, would you mind showing us that intake form? I'm going to stop sharing and let you share. We've had some questions about from people wanting to see an example of your intake form.
And Todd, while she's pulling that up, I would just want to point out we've had a lot of people asking about resources and how you can make this work in a corrections setting. And we did have someone from another program who has offered to facilitate or be involved with a discussion session regarding working with corrections. So hopefully we can get that on the books, and then we can address those problems specifically.
Yes. And there's also been a lot of questions about finding materials to use for packets. So one of the things that I would encourage people to do is create an account on ProLiteracy Education Network. And I'll put the link in the chat room, and we'll also send a link with the resources, the follow-up resources. But we have some lesson plans that you can print out and use with students. They're, you don't have to worry about copyrights. They're from our materials, and you can use them and make copies freely. And we've even been trying to go back and some of the exercise pages, turn them into PDF forms so students can type, save them, and send them back to the instructor by email. But I know also in a lot of programs, students are turning their work in by taking a picture of it and sending a text. Okay, Mina, you want to show the form?
Yeah, this is our intake form that our funder, the main funder is Arkansas Career Education. So this is, we have to follow their guidelines. So this is a 6-page long, but we reduced to 2-page. Like this. So all the information that we need to collect is there. And there also we have a Google form, but we decided not to use it because very few new students, and that the students also, accuracy is really important. So we would like to teacher to fill out the intake form for students. So at the end of class, new students stay, and then the teacher will fill out this for the student. And then during this COVID-19, we didn't need to get a student's signature.
I think, Mina, can you talk, and Savannah, can you talk a little bit about placement? We use intake a lot as a specific process of enrollment, but I think there might be questions also about what level to
That's correct.
place a student.
That's
Oh,
correct, Patty. Thank you.
so I don't have it here, but we are using TAPE Class E assessment. So I don't know if you guys also use that, but we used to use Best Literacy, but we switched it to TAPE Class E test 2 years ago. We're so happy about that. So when they, the process of student enrollment is that they come here and understanding our schedule and take the intake process. And that usually takes 2 hours and also 15 minutes student orientation. And then also they are taking assessment 1.5 hours. So during the time after that assessment, before that, we have a locator test for 15 minutes and then the TAPE Class E assessment. And
I would say, Mina, also, this is typical. This is our long-standing arrangement. We're in basically our 4th quarter of the academic year, April, May, June. And so right now, I think we're focusing on retaining students. If we do have new students, and we have a few, we're getting some basic intake information, but we're not sure that we can properly deliver a placement test until we have an opportunity to do that in person. These tests can't be delivered online and at distance currently. So we are placing students in these classes. It's a little bit self-selection, as a lot of group literacy classes are, and it's a little bit the teachers helping them encourage what time that might be right, or talking to them after class one-on-one by Zoom to help them figure out their level. So we're just kind of making do here in this unusual time.
Mina, can you show the online sign-in sheet again? Someone would like to see that again on Zoom.
So like I said, I'm just kind of briefly kind of show my Google Drive. Everything we need is all here, all of that. That's why I was able to work remotely. So if recently I'm just working on curriculum and online teacher, the information. So I create this, I'll pull the online teachers folder up here. So if I click the online teachers, all the meeting agenda, things that we discussed is going to be under here. And then intake was here, and all of this online sign-in sheet is under this folder. So if I click, we did the online class sign-in sheet here for all of each teacher. So they can just copy and then put it into the submission. So April submission and May submission. We just started May. So I copy, Lisa copy hers sign-in sheet, and her sign-in sheet look like this. And this is what we created. And then tutoring session sign-in sheet is the one that we use like this. Just tutor's name and student's name, like this way.
And then Mina, I think you said, or Savannah said, that you're using screenshots of the Zoom meetings to take attendance in your classes now. So then are your tutors just submitting those screenshots, or are they taking information from the screenshots and filling out the forms?
You mean the tutors?
Yes.
Yeah, tutors, as far as I know, that only 2 tutors are meeting students through Zoom. Most of students just join the Zoom. So they're just having a phone conversation and another like a WhatsApp and a different kind of tool. And we consider as a FaceTime too. They collect the data like this way.
Okay, I'm sorry, I meant teachers. I forgot your terminology.
Yeah, teachers. What was all your question? I'm sorry.
The teachers are taking Zoom screenshots for attendance. Are they just submitting those screenshots to you, or do they go back in and fill out the roster or attendance sheet?
Yeah, they have to do both.
Okay.
Have to do both, yeah.
Okay.
But they're not submitting what I told them, because that's kind of like redundancy there. So we are taking a screenshot just in case, just in case they want to see more just accuracy. So they're putting all the screenshot each days in their folder. And I'm thinking, when I'm talking to you, I think that's a good idea. Maybe I can put it up, creating this folder so that they can just submit it here. Yeah.
And just to clarify, one of our listeners also added that you can go to yours, if you're trying to figure out the best way for you, your organization to handle this, you can also go to your Zoom account and look at reports, and that will tell you who attended and for how long. So thank you, Heather, for that.
Okay.
Hi, there's a question for Mina. Mina, they were just wondering if you can repeat, what is the assessment name that you used?
TAPE Class E.
TAPE Class E.
Yeah.
Okay.
CLAS-E.
Let's see. We had a question about, so for those folks who are communicating with students not through Zoom, but like through the phone and things like that, have you found that your volunteers are comfortable using their personal phones, or are you using any services like Google Voice or WhatsApp to do that communication so students don't students and tutors are not sharing their kind of personal information?
I don't think they feel uncomfortable because before this COVID-19, a lot of tutors, it's not just come here to teach English, right? They're becoming kind of friends and kind of, family member in the United States. Kind of they're more than just a teacher, I think. I know that they're communicating by phone before this COVID-19. So I don't think they feel uncomfortable to sharing.
Okay, let's see. So here's a question. Are you planning on conducting post-tests, or kind of assuming you normally do post-testing at some point, have you thought about how that would transition to your distance learning model, or are you kind of at this point just focused on getting people into classes and the instruction?
I think we are still thinking about post-testing. One point we're thinking about meeting everybody at the parking lot, giving the post-test in the envelope, and then taking the test. I was kind of passing and saying to teachers, and they're kind of thinking, well, I think it's possible. So it may happen, but we are not in May right now. We are not really thinking about it. But this is the reason that we are having teachers meeting and talking about getting their feedback, and then we kind of pass on to our students and see what they think about that. And then I think if a student comes to parking lot to do that, I think they're definitely a dedicated student. For our school situation is that this year we did pre and post test really early for second quarter. So we're lucky that we are higher score right now. So we don't need to really worry about that. But definitely some of the students need to take a test and then post test, and then we need to think about different ideas.
Okay, let's see, there was, I'm trying to see, I think we've covered a lot of the assessment questions, the personal phone question. Did I ask the question about handouts, and how do you handle the handouts if the students don't have printers?
I would say, Mina, go ahead.
Why student need a printout handout?
If you have like just an exercise sheet or something like that you normally would give out in class for students to work on, or like the example of your check, how are you handling those things in a Zoom meeting where students may not be able to print them out and fill them out on their own? Are you just kind of going over them verbally? Are students typing their answers in the chats? Like, how are you handling that sort of student work product,
I
student
would
homework?
say, Mina, I'll step in here and say that we run, even before COVID-19, we ran a fairly paper-free operation. Some of our individual tutors would print things out depending on the level of their student. But as Mina mentioned, we use projectors in the classrooms, and the students are using paper and responding to that. It's not an everyday occurrence for us to do what you call handouts. I mean, we usually will work with projected information.
Okay, so this is really not that different than your normal instruction. You instead of using a projector to project it in front of a classroom, you're just sharing it on your screen using Zoom.
Yes, and then I think during class, and Savannah, you can kind of filling in, and we can, everything lesson we have, and we kind of keep it as a PDF and then the shareable format. So if a student want to, I think it depends on teacher. Higher level students want to get at the end of the session, they wanted to have a copy of it. We share the lesson electronically, and they will have it, and most of them, they have a phone at least, and a tablet, and the kind of electronically they can pull it up again. I think it's the first time they have some resistance there, but once they get kind of used to it, I think a lot of students like it. And also during classes, and we use, I mean, even Zoom class, I know that we can use a whiteboard, and a lot of students has a screenshot or take a picture of it. So I think it's how we design program and the delivering lesson that will kind of automatically, our students kind of, you were asking how your students adapting this Zoom class. I think very easy transition because our class, our program is, we utilize digital all the time in daily basis. So, Savannah,
And we
you
have
want
to. Yeah, we have to. I mean, we're a small nonprofit in rural Arkansas, and we don't have, I mean, we were always looking for ways to keep costs down. And so that was one of the, once cloud technology became doable and easy for lots of folks to access and understand, that's when the transition started.
We have a repeat question about curricula. Who's designing, who's responsible for coming up with the weekly curricula? Is it your teachers or is it your paid staff administrators?
I would say both, and I create the structure, and then teachers are just helping along with that. So I don't know, am I sharing right now?
Yes, I think you are, yes.
So I can go to my curriculum folder here like that. So concept that we have, okay, so if I click towards the curriculum, we have a 60 different level, and click this, I show you that everybody has their own folder here, and then do that. And then teachers are, so we provided this curriculum, the topics that the teacher needs to teach. So like 3, you teach, right? So we need to give something to teach. So we can just give them a book. We used to do that, but this copyright and all of that, we can just start teaching just a book. So if you want to make a copy of that. So, and also kind of, this program is just kind of topics and repetitive. We want to make sure, and when we have a new volunteer teacher coming in, and we don't want them to teach the same thing than last term. And as a program director, I am managing this, what to teach, where we find the resources. And also, if I just rely on teachers to find resources, and they could teach something that is inappropriate, and I feel that it's not relevant to our mission. So what I do, I just control that curriculum and then bring, share the structure with our new teachers. So our doing new volunteer teachers and AmeriCorps teachers, everybody need to go through the orientation to learn how to utilize the curriculum like that. So we definitely, we have classes going on. We have 6 different levels. All the teachers know that what level they are teaching. If they teach a level 3, they need to teach only here under this curriculum topics. So let's just say, and then they about the building a lesson plan is that Some we create by own. Yeah, teachers are creating lesson and lesson plan. But what I do as a program director, I was a I was as a teacher. I'm from South Korea and back in Korea, and I was a teacher too. So I know that how difficult it is to finding lesson plan each day. So I know a lot of resources, the good resources that I used to use and I have access to. So I share during teachers meeting in a poll that, and this is the new website. For instance, like this is the really good website. I need to kind of show you how do I, yeah. And this is my favorite website, ESL library website. Just kind of things that and also always to pay for it. This is not free website. And so we, to do that, I just we purchase one account to see if we really want to share this to teacher and experiment, and then we like it and then share with the teachers and then we get the feedback that years and years communicating with the teachers. And then we also hearing from students if we decide that this is what we're gonna use mainly, and then we share with everybody, every teachers. So if you click that, some of them we just created some of them from the ESL library on a free website, but the lesson is embedded in each topic. So if you need to teach this one and you have that, but we're working on it. This is extra work for them. So my main concern is that before anybody go to class, teacher need to have a syllabus, right? Teacher need to have a syllabus. So if I click that last year Savannah's class, each term, she has an syllabus, right? And then to make the syllabus, so as I mentioned, we need to do survey from the curriculum. And then based on survey and curriculum, we choose the topic. Each week has a theme and activity. Here we go. And then that's the first day we're giving this to student. And then we're following this. And then teacher need to adjust sometime because she thought that she's gonna finish this in a personal communication a week, and then it took another week, and then she can just talk to me and then we can adjust the syllabus. But the first day we have to have a guideline and plan, and the student need to clearly know what we are doing here. And this helps me really well when we recruit a new volunteer. Let's just say Savannah has to leave and she taught spring term 2. I need another volunteer teacher coming in, teaching this one. And if you are a volunteer teacher, you will know, I mean, what to teach. I mean, how, just from like, they're lost. So what I do is that I usually share all the previous lesson and syllabus to her, to at least she can kind of see what this class been covered. And then also you can kind of see that if you go to curriculum, what if it's a blank, it means that likely no one actually taught this topic yet. So that's how we utilize it.
And not surprisingly, we have questions about whether you're willing to share any of your curriculum. You know, I don't know how much of it there is, or how much should be, even if it was part of it where people could use it as a template to help them use as a launching pad for designing some of their own curriculum.
I think it's a PowerPoint shows how you design, and then if you definitely Todd is going to share, we are willing to share the PowerPoint, and then let's see, the curriculum that we have, I think a structure is the kind of secret. So you already have a secret, and that curriculum that what I can share is which is exactly the same. We can share exactly this one, share our curriculum, but I can share the same curriculum how we start with. Patty, is that right?
Yeah, I think it is about structure and organization. I also see there are some questions about subscriptions and that sort of thing that we probably could answer later in emails, but I know that Todd, I assume that you're gonna say goodbye here in just a minute to us.
Yeah. So a couple of things. So one is to just say, Mina and Patty, we can talk after the webinar, like offline, about what you guys can share and what not, and what might be you know,
Sure.
that you're willing to share about the structure and stuff like that, and figure out how to make that, you know, easy for you and easy for folks, and usable for folks. So we can have that offline. I do want to say thank you to everybody who has attended. We're at the end. So those of you who have a hard stop, you are free to go. We, Mina and Patty and Savannah have agreed to stay on afterwards to finish answering the questions that people have already posted. I think we've got a few more to get to, but not many, so that's good. And just to say thank you for their time, thank you for your time, and again, to remind you that you will get a follow-up email on Monday where we will have in that email a link to the recording, a link to a certificate. We'll post the chat where a lot of the resources have been posted. We'll put together a resource sheet for you that has links to the resources that they've shared and resources that other people have shared in the chat and in the Q&A. And then if we're able to get the curriculum sharing together between now and then, we'll have a link to something for you guys related to that as well. And then the PowerPoint slides. So thank you very much. And again, look next Tuesday or Wednesday for the link to next week's.
That's great. Todd, just a quick question. Would you be able to share the slide that has their email addresses? People were wondering if they can contact them.
Yes,
Maybe just.
I assume so. Is that okay, Mina,
Yes.
Patty, Savannah?
Yes.
Okay.
And we
Right.
also,
Thank you.
when people are traveling again, if you're in this part of the country, we'd love for you to come in. We always have, under normal conditions, we always have coffee and tea. And so we'd love for you to stop by.
In Fayetteville, I've been there. That's a lovely place to visit.
Yeah.
So.
Always welcome here.
So
Okay.
Todd, I noticed there's some questions popping up about copyright laws. Is that something you want to address as far as, you know, people are wondering about handouts
Sure.
and printouts and that sort of thing? I figured
Sure.
maybe that's one good one for you.
So first of all, I would like to preface what I'm about to say with, I am not a copyright attorney, and please do not reference me if you find yourself, you know, my advice is not designed to prevent you from any kind of legal entanglements. But
This is why I handed the question off to you.
yes, but the general rule of thumb that I tell people is that if you are copying material so that it's easier to use. So for example, if you were copying a page or scanning a page into your computer so that you could project it in front of your class so everybody could see it, that is typically okay. All right.
Yes.
If you are copying something so that you don't have to buy a book, so let's say that check that Mina showed, I copy that check or scan that check in so that I can project it in front of people, and we talk about how to fill in a check. That's okay, as long as the check was, you know, the original PDF or image or whatever it was free for use. I'm not making any money on it. If I then take that check and make copies of it and give it to my 30 students so that I don't have to buy a book or access to files or an image subscription or something like that, then that's a violation of copyright law. So if you're doing it so you don't have to buy something, that's wrong. If you're doing it just to make something, put it in a format that's easier for you to use to teach, that's generally okay.
We are buying subscription for teachers that the teachers can use, pulled up the ESL library lesson plan slide for during the class. So we are using that way. The one that I show you, the check part, is the little portion of the 6-page long, the lesson. And the ESL library logo is in each paper. Is that?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's and that's not violating copyright.
No,
Yeah.
that's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's the other thing is that if you are purchasing, subscriptions, they typically have rules about what that purchase means. It might be you've purchased it and now you can use it within your organization. It might mean you've purchased it and you have like licenses for a certain number of people to use it, different things like that. So those subscription models, I think you need to be kind of careful and read your agreement should outline those things. Let's see. There were questions about your English levels of your students. So you work with primarily ESL students. Do you have any students who are really like what somebody described as no English students? Like
Yes.
they speak little to no English or can read any English. How was it working with, how's it been in this environment with them?
I mentioned that we have a close partner, Canopy, which is the refugee services organization in our region, and we work with a lot of their clients, and some of their clients have no literacy in any language. It's frequently women, and they're carefully assigned tutors. And in fact, we have a model. We work with the Refugee Services Organization, and they've trained some of their service providers as literacy tutors so that they can continue that relationship with us, because you all know that's a real challenge working with people who don't have literacy, and we find that relationship helps. So that's very case by case basis, I would say, and those folks are Mina spends a lot of time carefully selecting tutors for folks who have those barriers.
And also I can kind of add it to that. And yeah, there was definitely a challenge. So that's why we don't put that online class. So they can join. But what we do is that I designated one of our AmeriCorps members to be in charge of the basic level. And she doesn't speak any other language. So even if she does, all different languages speaking students. So we have about like 8 to 12 basic level students. We contact them, making sure that they are okay. And we really struggle to communicate. So what we start doing is that connect with our advanced teachers, and we have a lot of advanced students that their English level is really high. So all the different languages, we can find not tutor, someone can just kind of matching them to making sure that they're okay. So advanced students, often they're becoming our tutor too, to our lowest level students. So that's how we help the basic students right now.
Okay. We have, I think, 2 more questions. So Patty, I know you shared a slide early on about your growth from 2007 to 2019. And I forget how many folks you're serving now.
We serve between, I mean, this is going to be an unusual year, but 350 to 400, up from about 80.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so the question is, what percentage approximately of your tutors and students are meeting now? Like, once you started doing the distance learning, what's your retention been?
Mina, I think that we're still in that quarter. I mean, we turned in our 3rd quarter reports, right, but I'd say that we're still figuring that out. Mina, what do you want to add?
I'm sorry, what was the question? I'm sorry.
About retention. How are we retaining in the 4th quarter? Like
the number of students that you were serving kind of in the 4th quarter before all of this hit, right, what percentage of them are still meeting and working with you?
I would say, I think we are 30% of our students we're losing.
Okay.
Yes.
So about 70% you've maintained.
Yes.
Okay. That's a really good percentage. Mm. And then the last question is, I'm going to kind of combine these two. So you are using Google Drive, correct? As how
Yes.
you share all your curriculum.
Yes.
Are you using any of the other Google integrations like Google Classrooms or Google Suite to?
Yes.
And can you talk about how those all integrate together or how you're using them?
Well, we don't use Google Classroom, but we use Google Suite as for all of our administrative functions. In addition to curriculum, we basically run everything paper free. And so we're using Google Suite, and we have a subscription. And 501c3s are, Google Suite is available for free to 501c3s. So folks need to know that if they are not using that resource now. But we do not use Google Classroom.
Okay. Okay. And I think that is it. Thank you guys so much for doing this again. And then I'll reach out to you guys in a little bit and just kind of, we'll talk about like what you're comfortable sharing with your curriculum and things like that with folks. And then again, thank you. Thank you those that attended and kind of stuck around for the end of the question and answer session. And hopefully we'll see everybody next week.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.